This is Secrets to Win Big, your roadmap to sustained growth. Brought to you by Arjun Sen, founder and CEO of Zen Mango, top brand growth driver, and a former Fortune 500 executive who has been called one of the most marketing intelligent minds in the business. Find him at zenmango.com. And now, here's your host, Arjun Sen.
Welcome to Secrets to Win Big with Arjun Sen. Hi, this is Arjun. And I truly enjoy these conversations with leaders from all walks of life all over the world, because each conversation adds a very different, unique perspective. Each one of us, our starting points and our destinations are different. The choice of path is different, and that's the reason these conversations are gold nuggets. Today, it's truly my pleasure and honor to talk to and have a conversation with my VIP guest, Carl Cox. Carl Cox is passionate about navigating your strategy with purpose to reach your destination faster, even in uncharted waters. I've been fortunate to know Carl over quite a few conversations, and I think if I have to nickname this man, I would call him a human GPS. He gets you to where he promises to get you. Carl is the CEO of 40 Strategy Inc. and the host of Measure Success podcast. He's passionate about designing great strategic plans, but more importantly, getting them done. That's the part I want to focus on. Is talking the talk is very important, but translating that into walking and getting across the finish line is where few people excel in. Navigate your strategy with purpose methodology increases success by 3x. So, Carl, I hope I've embarrassed you enough with your bio, but I'm thoroughly impressed. Welcome to Secrets to Win Big.
Thank you so much for the super kind introduction, and really look forward for this conversation today.
So, Carl, let's start at the very beginning. You and I both see a lot of amazing strategists. We also see a lot of people who are incredible implementers, but taking the strategy to action is a rare skill. What is your secret to make it happen, that to delivering 3x results?
Well, I think there's of course several, more than one secret, but I think one of the key secrets is having the mindset that strategic planning is a hypothesis, it's not a fact. And when we come in with that mindset and realize, I think one of the greatest challenges, and how many times you've run into this working with the client, they'll turn back and you ask them, so tell me about your strategic plan that you did last year. And they'll go scrambling around, they'll look back and they'll find a document and they'll blow it off, right? They'll blow off the dust off their strategic plan. And that's the problem. A strategic plan is intended to be a guide, but it's not actually how you're going to actually get there. It's the result of learning and figuring things out how you should get it done is the real secret to actually driving to your final destination. And I think that's what I find the most is when you could have that mindset, and a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset, right? That we're going to learn actually how we're going to deliver and get to there. Ultimately, what I see is those who have that consideration, they don't end up they never dust off their strategic plan because it never was a PDF to begin with. It was a working document that they were planning to continually adjust it and modify it to make sure they got to where they want to accomplish.
So let's build on that. And I take it very seriously when I called you the best human GPS. Okay? So why is it that so many businesses create these brand strategy plans, mission, vision, all these that get on a poster somewhere, but are never used?
So I think part of that is there's a lack of buy-in that happens often with these. And there's two different, I like to call core values. And you were mentioning earlier about there's a difference between talking the talk and walking the talk. Mm-hmm. Often something you see posted on a placard or a board is an aspirational core value. This is who we hope to be. Don't do as I do, but do it as I say. The problem with that, no different than a parent who tells you not to do something, but they're doing something wrong, the kids will end up following actions rather than words. Mm-hmm. So often organizations and corporations, they'll put down not who they are. It's aspirational. And as a result of that, nobody believes it and they don't follow it. Mm-hmm. The appropriate core values or vision or mission should be authentic. Mm-hmm. They should be unique. They should be their own, if you may, fingerprint identity to what makes them great. And the more that resonates and it fits and buys in with the individuals, it's much more likely people are going to follow through with it and get it done. And then they'll walk the talk because they already have been. I find what's interesting is most organizations, even if they don't have it documented, have a DNA. Mm-hmm. They have their core values, but they need to properly not just say integrity. A great example, right? How many times have we seen integrity as a core value? The problem with that is I can't have a discussion with you and say your integrity is bad without getting, it sounds like I've called your mama a bad name and you want to get in a fist fight now, right? Nobody wants to hear that. But if we say something of this nature and we say, integrity to us means we deliver our documents on time. Mm-hmm. Now, all of a sudden, we can have a discussion about delivering documents on time. And we're not going to get a fist fight over it because it's more of a behavior rather than an impression of honesty and just pure honesty, integrity.
And what I like about that is that example is it's a very clear target and I can measure my performance around it. And if I don't hit the number, I can right away ask or get help to create a path to getting there. If I'm at 96%, I know I need to go 4 more. I can still celebrate the 96, but get there. Something you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation was many a time we do not have buy-in, okay? Mm-hmm. So what do you do when you start working with an organization to make sure that they have buy-in at the beginning of the journey so they get to the end result with a working document, not an aspirational document?
So it's several different steps when we go through and we're working with our clients to help get there. And the first thing we talk about is this clear the compass. And I like to, whenever possible, start with a blank slate. Mm-hmm. Not start with now, if they already have something that's really, really good, often I will not modify and adjust it. But let's just say for argument's sake, they have something they're not really good with, they're comfortable with. And this is where the blank slate comes in. And where I draw from is who are we today? Mm-hmm. And what are the skills and the gifts and the different pieces that makes us unique and makes us different? And then often it's a process of brainstorming and validation, of validating not only with who we are, but our clients, our employees, our customers, our vendors, and asking and questioning, is this fit who we really are? Are these the things that we can now take this and drive it to be more successful in delivering whatever product and service that we have? But having that insight up front helps create that deeper buy-in. But once again, I think the buy-in comes from authenticity mm-hmm. rather than the aspirational side. Not to say that you can't take that authenticity to have a big, hairy, and audacious goal to go somewhere you've never gone before. But there's a difference between a goal, mm-hmm. right? Once again, of where we're trying to deliver a product or service in the future, or how much we're trying to change the world versus who we are and what makes us truly authentic and amazing to the world.
And the difference between that aspirational goal, which we want to strive to, versus what we want to deliver today, I really feel is very key. One of the things I see in businesses, success to me is understanding the concept that branding is not a marketing thing. Mm. Marketing's job is to make promises to get people in the door. But branding happens when operations delivers on the promise, because the experience you get is the brand. And consistent delivery is what builds trust. Okay? You know, each one of us, when we are in a relationship, only when we find that person where we see that consistently this person's actions are always the same, then I realize that this is the person I want to be in a relationship with. So as you start going through, how do you help brands separate by saying the goals of tomorrow versus the deliverables of today that makes you unique one-on-one? How do you help them see those two things differently, and what's the strategy behind going for the bigger goal and delivering today consistently?
So our step one is what we call clear the compass. And we use these terms in terms of like navigating a ship. And so the first step is clearing compass. But the very next step is making what we call selecting our destination. If you kind of envision being in a ship and trying to find your treasure, right? And so from that, you're going to mark a future spot of this is where we're going to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, what we do a combination of different parts is one is we talk about how can we create a big, hairy, and audacious goal, which you've probably heard the concept from Good to Great from Jim Collins. And we try to set something that's a 10-year plus target, which is, by the way, people are uncomfortable with doing, right, to begin with. But the reason why we do that, and something, by the way, you have a 50% or greater likelihood of hitting. I didn't say 100%. I didn't say 0%, right? About 50% or better. Mm-hmm. We have to set these big, hairy, and audacious goals, because if we don't create something like that, we won't have the motivation to get there. Our tendency is to make small, incremental, subtle, boring changes. And that's okay when you have a deep level manufacturing process that's in pretty good shape. But when you're trying to really get everybody to go somewhere new, you have to get something that people can motivate, rally around, and go from there. And then how we create buy-in from that, because there's a lot of people who won't believe that. They're like, I've only been here 2 years, or even if I've been here 10 years, 15 years, you want to think about, then what we do is we bring it back. Okay, what can we do 5 years from now? What can we do 3 years from now? And then we get down to what can we do 1 year from now? And then if you go down that path, 3 to 5 years from now, a 70% chance likelihood. 1 year from now, high likelihood of meeting. And so we create this buy-in agreement by looking way ahead in the future and then reeling it back to current state. And that what that does is it forces people once again to think about how are we going to change our processes, our procedures, our products, our services, because what we're doing today can't get there. Mm-hmm. But it forces out, hey, we think big, we think differently. We can actually accomplish extraordinary things with that mindset.
So I get the concept. This is something, of course, if you're making this promise to any organization, this is something people say yes to. But what's the first step we must take so we are actually walking the talk in this journey and there's no BS?
That's an interesting question, the way how you put it from that perspective. And
because let me rephrase, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say I am part of this organization, I'm a CMO or CEO. If you ask me all these things, we all will nod our heads. Absolutely. We will separate this, we will do this, we'll have a clear slate. But what is the one proof of action that you need? Because your time is very valuable, that you know that these guys are actually committed to this.
So so it's very common, right? So like you, my career is not, I don't spend a whole lot of time with slackers. Okay. I'm spending it with high driving, hard charging, A-type individuals who've already been very successful in their previous career and currently, but they're stuck. Mm-hmm. They're stuck in some type of current state. And often we'll write down way too many things in that process. Mm-hmm. we'll write down things that have like a 0% chance of happening, honestly, right? It's a way, it's not even a moonshot. It's a miracle that can't happen. And then sometimes we'll say these things that will almost have no impact in terms of the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So what we'll do is we'll go through a process of actually evaluating these different goals and concepts that are out there. We'll put some math to it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's the likelihood of this taking place? What is the impact of this goal actually happening? And so from there, we'll filter it down and we'll use the Pareto principle of these particular goals are going to have the greatest likelihood and greatest possible outcome for our organization. And through that process, all of a sudden there was this aha. And what's Arjun, what I find what's interesting is often the team, they already have the ideas and concepts. They've just been sitting on it. They've been sitting on this idea for years, and they've been unwilling to take the chance because they never went through a process of actually evaluating. Like I'll hear sometimes, oh, we're going to write a policy. It's like, what does it have to do with changing? That's not acting, right? The action is actually starting to move towards this new area, this new idea, this new concept. And so that's where we see, once again, this believability, the buy-in, the concepts of actually, hey, we're going to focus on the few that are going to make the greatest difference. And of course, there's two other key steps of what we do is we figure out how we're going to get there. So that's the strategy, right? There's a goal, but then there's strategy of how we're going to get there. And typically it's multiple strategies. And honestly, we don't exactly know which strategy is going to work.
That's brilliant. Absolutely. I love that. So let me ask you one more question, because I'm very fascinated by your process. Another thing you mentioned is there's a perception of who we are, because at the end, we really have to be unique, one-on-one, one-of-one in the mind of the paying customer or client.
Right.
If the customer, the client doesn't think I'm one-of-one, me bragging to you who is my friend, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So how do you do that reality check? When a brand talks to you and says, hey, I'm this, I'm that, how do you get that validation that among the target audience, they actually own that one-of-one space?
We will actually do multiple different things, but one is we will try to validate with customer base and we'll try to track to see what's happening. So for example, if somebody said we're extraordinary in customer service, so then I ask them questions. So what's your on-time delivery? And if they're
actual measures, it goes back to the example at the very beginning. You said it's not about integrity, but it is the action that defines, and it's universally. I love that. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I had to jump in. I got it.
No, it's perfect. So, and that's where I'm a big fan of Net Promoter Score as an example. That many people are familiar with. That if you're familiar with in the survey world, this is when you get that question on a basis of 1 to 10, how likely you to refer our product or service to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get a 9 or 10, you get a +1 score. If you get a 7 or 8, you get a 0 score, and you get a 6 or under, you get a negative score. And the best companies in the world get a rating of around 60 to 65. And the average company gets around a 10 to 20. And most companies in the world are actually negative. So if somebody's saying we're the best company in the world from their perspective, it's very easy to do a Net Promoter Score. You can do this almost instantaneously. Send out information, ask their customers, are they willing to refer their product or service? The reality is this, Arjun, is we can also ask the question is how many times are you getting recurring customers and referral customers versus not? These are pretty easy things to validate and go through. And so I'll ask these questions, the process. And so if somebody's said, hey, we want to become the greatest company in the world, meaning in terms of, like, say, customer service in the particular industry, we can ask some pretty simple, basic key performance indicators. Ask what the outcomes are. Now, the real challenge, though, Arjun, is they're always focusing on the end goal, but the real focus has to be on the leading indicators. So most organizations, they focus, when we talk with organizations, 80 to 90% of the key performance indicators are outcomes. We're going to go there. We're going to go here. We're going to go there. We're going to go here. But the real value, the strategic plan is flipped on its head. And 80% of our strategic plan should be key performance indicators based on the things we can actually control. So I'll use that same example of just delivery. Let's say we're going to deliver on time. Well, that's an outcome, right? So to make sure that we're delivering on time, what are the things we have to do to get to there? Well, we probably have to make sure that we get the order, we process it within a period of time. We make sure we have inventory available or whatever the service is to deliver it. We have labor resources to help deliver through the part. These are the things that we can control, right? We should be able to control who we have. We should be able to control the product that we have. We should be able to control the quality. And those are the parts that we actually should be measuring to get to the final outcome of delivering. But often we'll deliver on time, but we're not actually understanding why is it on time or not? And that focus really creates the kind of, if you may, once again, the big secret, because often people are working on things and they just keep on doing the same thing over and over again because they're not focused. I'll give you one example. We were working with a school district as a previous company I was with. And the school district, it was a charter school, and their primary focus was, I asked them, what's your most important key performance indicator? And they said, well, it's number of students, because, well, first of all, we're trying to serve the greatest number of students. And secondly, we get our funding based on number of students. It was a charter school. So I asked them, well, how do you measure and make sure you're being successful? And they said, well, we measure our number of students. And so I asked it again, how do you make sure you're in control of the number of students? And they said, through the year. And they said, well, we measure the number of students. So I wasn't getting anywhere. And then I asked them, well, what can you control in this process? And somebody said, well, what about when people actually apply to school? And I said, that's great. I said, do you actually control the process when somebody submits an application? They were like, no, we don't. Mm-hmm. So we kept on going through this process. And finally, the superintendent had this aha moment. They were like, oh, it's when they do a campus tour. It's when they do a campus tour, we can actually find out when they're more than likely or not to come to our school. So then I asked them the key question, do you track campus tours? And there was this blank stare. What they discerned was their most important part of recruitment to get new students was campus tours, and they weren't even tracking it.
Love that.
And then just think of the opportunities within that, tracking the campus tour, the quality of the campus tour, the follow-up of the campus tour, who is on the campus tour, how was the experience of the campus tour? This now becomes your strategies to increase
the bigger goal.
That's right. That's right.
So for 40 Strategy Inc., what is the one goal that you have that you want to take every client through to every time?
It's focusing on what you can control to create the greatest value for your clients.
Love it. So how did you get the name 40 Strategy Inc.?
It has several different meanings, but the core part of it was something I'd read and actually experienced, is that most organizations only spend about 2% of their time on strategic planning and execution. And meaning, what I mean by that is coming up with the strategies and then actually following up to see if they actually got it done. And that comes out to about 40 hours per year. So that's the concept of 40 Strategy, is work with our organization to help build up that 40 hours that you're already doing, and probably not an expert level, because this is what we're doing all the time.
You're maximizing on that.
That's right. The other side behind this is on the 40 is kind of that concept of 40 days. It's hard. There is a challenge and a struggle with actually trying to get to a new place. I don't actually like to work with organizations where they say we just want to grow 1% or 2%, or we just want to do the same thing we did last year. Please don't contact us. We're not in the business of doing something different, but there's a struggle. There's a challenge when you're trying to transform who you are and where you're trying to go to. And I love working with those organizations, those who really have a desire to be greater at what they do. And that's who we work with. So there's a combination of, let's maximize the time and effort that you spend on strategic planning and execution to become more of an expert at what you do. We want to get our clients to be in the top 10% of execution. And that what that means is only the top 10% get 2/3 of their strategic objectives done.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So we're trying to get people to that level or higher. And that's how we know we're successful, is when we get people to that. And then then it's value. And from our, it was interesting when in the middle of COVID-19, Arjun, somebody threw out there in the ether, if you may, and they said, what can we make a difference? How can we make a difference? Now, this is when everything was frozen in the middle, early in 2020. And somebody just threw out there, just add value. And that's what we try to do on a regular basis. And so what we find is when we start with engagements, we continually get asked to help them out because we're adding value in their process to help accomplish their goals.
So I'm just going to change gears a lot to take you to a different side of you. Mm-hmm. You have been in quite a few boards. You do a lot of work with nonprofits. When you work with nonprofits, how do you help them see the key factors to success?
What's interesting is the only thing that's different than a for-profit organization and a not-for-profit organization is the language that we use. Mm-hmm. Everyone is trying to sell. It's just a matter of what they're trying to sell. So whether you're trying to fund, you're trying to help people from homelessness, mm-hmm. or whether you're trying to sell a car, we're all trying to make a difference in the world through our means. Mm-hmm. And whatever the corporate structure is, whether it's 501c3, a government entity, or a for-profit entity, we think the most important thing is just changing our language to help meet theirs. So the same 7-step process that I talked about, of course, we just talked about the first 3. We actually do the same thing with them, but we have to make sure we resonate with what they're saying. As you notice throughout this, most of the time, I don't say company, I say organization, because that's a much broader term.
Between an organization and a company.
That's right. Because if I just say company all the time, mm-hmm. I'm sorry, say that again.
What's the difference between organization and company?
If I use the term company when we're working with the government or with a not-for-profit, they don't hear that. They're like, you're in the wrong room. But if I say organization, they say, oh, I'm a 501c3 organization, or if I'm a government organization. So that's why we typically use that specific nomenclature. It's just nomenclature. And we change our language all the time to adapt to our customers. So even though we have a 7-step principled process, if somebody calls something an objective versus a project versus an initiative, we don't care. Mm-hmm. There's hundreds of languages in the US, in the world, excuse me. And I should say in the US as well, right? That are spoken. All that matters to us is they understand the language to get it to work for them. And so we modify and adapt accordingly. So that's how we work with that same principle process, but we really do care. We spend a lot of time with not-for-profit organizations. About a third of our, a quarter to a third of our work is with not-for-profits.
So what's your definition for a personal life, business world to win big?
For me personally, one of my favorite movies is Saving Private Ryan. And I don't know for those who've seen that movie, but there's just for those in the audience who haven't happened to see it, it's the movie of D-Day and they go through this process to try to find one soldier who's one of the Ryans, because 3 of his brothers had died on D-Day, or right near around D-Day. And so they're trying to save one of them. And at the end of the movie, he is saved. But the main actor goes through and he asks this question. He says, earn it. Earn it. And so the very end of the movie, Ryan goes and he's in front of the cemetery. And this is Tom Hanks, by the way, who's playing the role. And he goes through and he asks his wife, have I earned it? That's how I try to live. I try to live each day that I'm earning it. There are people who have sacrificed for me through my life, have done incredible things for me, even though I didn't deserve it. And so when it comes to my family, when it comes to my faith, when it comes to the people, the organizations that we work with, we're trying to earn it on a regular basis. And so I want to make sure that when I put my head down into bed each night, I feel like that I made the greatest difference and added the greatest value that I can.
So with that wisdom, if you could go back in time and meet the 17-year-old young man, Carl Cox, just getting ready to take on the world, what would be one piece of advice you would give to young Carl?
Read more now.
Okay. So let's say now you can go and meet this incredible guy on a golf course, 102-year-old Carl Cox. What would be one thing you would ask him before he sinks that putt?
That's a great question. I think what I would do is I'd ask that. That's an interesting way. Is I think I would ask the same question. Is I would ask him specifically what was the one or two things that mattered the most when you were trying to add value in the world.
Not that. But I had an hypothesis for you. I was expecting you to answer it as, did I earn it? Because
sorry, I should have properly, that would have been exactly the right question.
Because that's what I just feel that you are so, everything for you is a process that you build around this. I love that conversation that is there. So, Carl, for somebody to bring discipline to the corporate world, okay, and I'm just taking it at a very simple level, okay, what do you do? A lot of us get it, but doing it takes commitment and discipline. And it takes processes. Right. So what kind of processes do you have in your life? Like, is there a ritual you have when you start your work day? Is there a ritual when you finish your work day that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. What I found has been interesting. I asked a similar question to my guests on the Measure Success, because I'm trying to figure that out. What are the unique things you're doing? And so, yeah, I definitely have a regular schedule that I do every single day. So first of all, I try to wake up 5:05. That's what my alarm is set for, 5:05 a.m. I get up.
I have to ask, why 5:05?
Okay, this
for
is kind of
there's nothing random. For you, there's nothing random about it.
There's something weird with exactly 5 bothers me, and before 5 o'clock seems way too early.
Okay.
I don't mind if I naturally wake up before 5:05 and I'll turn off my alarm, but it just is a little bit different. I always like these little slight different numbers. That's different, but there isn't specifically with the number 5:05 in particular. It's just that's so. Anyways, at 5:05 wake up. So I'll walk through a few things. Brush my teeth. Okay, this sounds silly, but when you have a fresh breath mouth, it's great. Now, but the funny part is I didn't even talk to anybody for the next 2 hours because I don't even see anybody. But brush my teeth. I get a glass of water. That's the second thing I do. Then I'll read. I'll read a book on faith, prayerless, meditate, and read. One of my favorite things is a Zig Ziglar. For those who are familiar, it's basically a self-motivation thing, and I read it every day. So that begins. And Zig Ziglar had a major impact on my life with somebody I read from him. He's now since passed, but that has had a major part of staying positive, because I think the most important thing is doing the right things to stay positive in the day. Then after I get to there, if sometimes I'll go in the hot tub for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll start stretching. So I'll have a stretching routine that takes 10 to 15 minutes. And then after the stretching routine, it will determine based on my workout regimen for that day, whether I'm doing push-ups or whether I'm running. So I'm currently training for a marathon. So I'm just ran a half marathon recently. By the way, prior to this whole program, I'm not a runner. Actually, don't even like running that much. It's kind of an interesting process. But through that, I try to run, have a half marathon, running the San Diego Marathon planned in October of this year. And so I have a very regimented Hal Higdon marathon program. Now, interesting case, I wasn't properly using a program and I failed the previous 2 years to run a marathon. I didn't help my appendix burst, but that's a side note behind all of this that happened the last year. But I had this very specific schedule part. I'm running through that. So now I restarted my program. Now I'm week 4 of 18, but I said I already went through about halfway through that program. And so it's great as I'm on track. But that's how I start the day. And then I'll get to work. Usually I'm at work by 7 a.m. I have East Coast clients and I'm based in the West Coast. And so often I'm talking with them on a regular basis. And then my Starbucks. I can't forget my tall non-fat caramel macchiato, which I sometimes change with a tall vanilla latte and a sandwich. So that's pretty much my day. But doing all of those things gives me the energy. And Darren Hardy, I do this Darren Hardy part, and he has his morning Darren Daily part I'll listen to, and he wrote The Compound Effect, by the way, and Starbucks. Yeah, so that's it. So basically that gets me to get in the office at 7 a.m. and by that time I have energy. It's interesting, Arjun, I'll notice I'm not lacking energy. I'm lacking energy when I don't do those steps. Because I can't say every single day do it. That would be impossible.
Having the goal is very important.
Yeah, but when I stay consistent, my energy level and my greater likelihood of getting things done. And I also didn't mention, I definitely plan my day. I try to do it the night before and I review it the day of to make sure that my top 3 to 5 tasks are going to get done. And I know all the scheduled meetings I have planned for.
Carl, this is a fascinating conversation. Okay, I truly learned a lot. 2 final questions. Question 1. If you could name our conversation in 5 or less words, what would you use?
Create value for others.
I love that. I was again expecting, have I earned it?
You keep on going back to the best part.
It's memorable. So again, fascinating conversation. Thank you. Is there anything you would like to add that we didn't talk about?
I just few different things of just, I once again, thank you. I really appreciate these opportunities to be able to get to share what we do. I encourage people who want to learn more. They can go to 40strategy.com, and that has some information on our website about what we're doing and how we're trying to make a difference. Feel free to, you can email us at catching a ball at 40strategy.com. And you could also listen to the Measure Success podcast, in which Arjun, actually you were a guest on it as well. And you actually provided extraordinary insights. I loved some of the messages that you had, including I shared with some of my family, my kids about, I believe it was your grandmother, in terms of saving money and how to spend your money. I love that. That was a great principle that you shared. So those things I think would be parts of just wanted to be able to share if people want to connect more. And I'm on LinkedIn pretty regularly. I share quite a bit of information, book recommendations, podcasts that we have, and just insights to hopefully help other people get and make a difference. The big picture, what we're trying to do is we're trying to impact 1 million people, 10,000 organizations. And myself, I want to work with 100 organizations directly over the next decade. This decade includes, we're about 1.5 years in our 10-year plan. And we also give the first 10% of our net revenues to charity. So from day one, we've been giving money away. We have 4 specific charities that we're giving to. 2 are related to homeless. One is with disaster recovery, and the other one is with microloans and on a global basis. And so that, if something helps get me fired up, if I'm a little lazy in the morning to get up, that gives me motivation to help make sure that we want to do that. And through that, our goal is to give at least $1 million over the next decade through that process and program.
Well, thank you for sharing. First of all, I wish you the very best in health and fitness as you cross the finish line in the marathon in October. So we all are rooting for you. I wish you the very best in the business side. A fascinating conversation. And here's a request I have to each one of you who are listening to the podcast. Find this guy, Carl Cox, and ask him the question, did you earn it? Because I really feel that confidence comes when you add value and you earn that value. And I'm not trivializing that part of the conversation because that to me stuck, because sustaining business comes from adding value and you earn it. And the Private Ryan story, I really think will stay with me for a long time. I'd watched the movie, I'd forgotten that part, but I have to watch it again. Thank you again, Carl. Thank you all for listening. And truly a pleasure to have the best seat in the house to talk to incredible leaders like Carl Cox. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun.
You've been listening to Secrets to Win Big with Arjun Sen, founder and CEO of Zen Mango, top brand growth driver, and a former Fortune 500 executive who has been called one of the most marketing intelligent minds in the business. To learn more, visit www.zenmango.com. Share this podcast with your friends and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.